Hey y'all, it's Kimberly Perry. My new song, If I Die Young Part 2, is about my life over the last decade and all the wonderful things that have come into it. Check it out on the iHeartRadio app and let me know what you think. I wrote the original version of If I Die Young when I was in my mid-20s all by myself. And last summer I was having coffee with a good friend of mine. I was right in the throes of writing for my new project called Bloom. And she said, hey, would you ever think about writing a song, a part 2, a sequel to the original If I Die Young, but from the perspective of the girl that wrote the original over 10 years later who didn't die young. And when she said that, it was like an immediate light bulb went off in my mind and in my heart. And I was like, I have to write this part 2. So much of my life looks so different today than it did 10 years ago. I've gone from being a sister and a daughter to also being a mother and a wife. And part 2 really feels like the full circle moment of that girl who was sitting in her bedroom over a decade ago, just thinking and dreaming about life and what would happen if it was to end short. And I'm the woman today who gets to sing part 2 going like, thank God that it hasn't, because there are so many rich blessings and collective wisdom that's come into my life since then. I knew that If I Die Young Part 2 had to be the first statement for me as a solo artist, because it really brings so much of my story full circle. Creatively, the original version of If I Die Young, which I wrote all by myself over a decade ago now, over the last 10 years, when I would sort of want to creatively explore different things and go on different journeys, there were moments when I needed to remember my creative core, my creative center. And I could always go back to If I Die Young and say, that's that girl who loves to sing melodies like that and write lyrics like that. That was incredibly helpful as I started to write a solo project, just to remember the core of that young girl that wrote that song, but to also get to write the lyric with the wisdom of a woman. Over the past couple years, I've gone from being just a sister and a daughter, and I've added some commas to it. Now I'm also a mother and a wife, and I think that there's so much life wisdom that I've gained in the course of the last decade that I can speak to in If I Die Young Part 2. So it's just bringing everything full circle for me. The first people I shared the idea for If I Die Young Part 2 with are my co-writers, Nicole Gallion and Jimmy Robbins. And it was actually 2 days before we went in to start cutting Bloom in the studio. And I was like, guys, I know we only have 48 hours before we are with the band and recording this music, but I feel like If I Die Young Part 2 has to be written. And so they graciously carved out the time to jump in the writing room with me. And it was just such a special thing to talk about all the developments in all 3 of our lives over the last decade and to kind of write that into the part 2 lyric.